Hello, hello. It's Wednesday, my crew. Hey, Nix. Hey, Rhiannon Journey. How's everyone doing today? Wednesday crew. That's it. I'm lucky any day y'all sign up to crew with me. You're pretty... Nix, you're pretty and fine, but tired. Okay, you got 2 out of 3, I guess. You can call me Rhiannon or Journey or Rhi if you don't want to say my full name. No worries. I will say Rhiannon sometimes. I just like to say the full name. Rhi, okay. Yeah, I think I heard someone call you RJ, and I was like, is that an okay one? Like, I'll do that. No, you got it. Rhiannon Journey. Rhiannon or Journey or Rhi. Oh, there it is. Nick's coming in. Whatever you want. All right, now's the opportunity for a music change, I think. Here we go. RJ is fine too? Okay, like Robert Jordan. I'm going to pretend I know who Robert Jordan is. One of your favorite authors? Oh, okay, cool. I was about to say, most authors have like so many acronyms. It'll be, you know, like J.R.R. Tolkien, A.B.F.E.G.C. Howard. No, that's not a real one, but that's how it feels sometimes. Just as more and more people put out books, you have to add more and more initials in front of their name. Oh, it's the Wheel of Time author. Okay. I'm aware of that, of the Wheel of Time. It keeps on wheeling. All right. So I did some work yesterday. I should say last night. I stayed up too late last night, messing around. I changed our little transform process deal for getting coordinates into and out of camera relative form. It mostly works. I say mostly. There's a really crucial... I think I got the formula right this time, at least. It's pretty simple. My problem before, I think I was mixing up the rotation and the translation. So now we very clearly do the translation, then the rotation. Well, we get it into the correct space, then we do it, and then we get it back. Why is this written this? This seems wrong. Oh yeah, no, this is right. You get it into the camera space, do the rotation, and then put it back. G-R-R-R-R-R-R Martin. Exactly. You got it, Rhiannon. How is nixing it up? Nix is totally a verb. It usually means to, like, ditch something, though. Or to cut something. You know, ixnay. Which is the Pig Latin version of your name. Yeah, I think it's kind of archaic. I don't think people really say it now as a verb, but all right. So I continued to experience some problems, but I think it's because I was trying to move the coordinates within the bounding boxes, and I wasn't moving the whole bounding box. So I think we're going to update it to do that, and I really hope that fixes it. And we can do all this nice camera rotation stuff. Nix in Germans means nothing. Nichts is how you write it. You pronounce it Nix. Okay, like Nichts. Cool. That makes sense. Let's look at the etymology of Nix. Why not? I know it'll say it's German. From a colloquial variant meaning nothing. Does it have a history beyond that? In folklore, it used to mean a water sprite. That's funny. A little water demon. It used to also be an informal warning that an authority figure is approaching. These are truly archaic. I like that. Yeah. I love etymology. I have an etymology book on my shelf. When I would dungeon master for a brief period, if you wanted to get a friendly ruling from me, you would go get the etymology book out and justify your reading of a particular word. All right, so let's see. So what we need to do, right now we have this process for transforming vectors. We technically have the process for transforming bounding boxes. It should just work. Because it's essentially just doing the vector thing twice, once to the maximum and once to the minimum. And then now that the bounding box can be anything, you could theoretically rotate it, and the maximum could become the minimum, and the minimum, you could mix them up. So now when you construct a bounding box, it just does that for you. And so that should be okay. And so what I need to do now, I think. So now when we're getting coordinates into a camera relative form, I need to also transform the bounding box. I just need to figure out where we do that. Rhiannon Journey, speaking of TTRPGs, do I watch any actual play shows? If so, check out Shield of Tomorrow and Clear Skies on YouTube. It's a group of Trekkies playing Star Trek Adventures, and they are lots of fun. Some of your favorite comfort shows. You've watched both several times. Oh, nice. I haven't seen that. I'm like anyone else, I've seen, my share of Critical Role or like the Penny Arcade, like D&D series. Back when like Chris Perkins was running it. So I've seen a fair share of them. They're a little too demanding to watch while I'm working. Like there's a little bit too much to follow. And you got to keep up with it or it's really confusing, but I'll check out the Star Trek ones. Why not? That sounds fun. I hope there's lots of like arguments about like the prime directive and stuff. All right, so when we encounter... So when do we need... I know there's a point where this code fails a lot. Let me try to trigger the failure point, and that might provide me a hook into where I should be updating these transforms. So we're gonna like make a thing, and so here's like a little thing with a little shape on it, and now we can just turn it around, right? And it's being turned around the camera, yeah? Cool, yeah? A little weird. That kind of went a little weird. If I move the camera and then do it, it behaves a little strangely. Okay, so there's something there we need to address as well. But I want to try to trigger an out of bounds exception. There we go. Because that shouldn't be possible. So it's here, exterior cutaways. So we say if not block.getABS block coords. Huh. There's Nix. You opened Reddit and you got surprised. You saw me on a meme and you realized you just have Twitch like in a window. That's good. Yeah, I'm not really meme material at this point. Let's hope I never become meme material, I guess. That'd be embarrassing for me. Rhiannon, there is stuff like that and science rules to make and test theories. Fun. Chris Perkins. Oh, you're telling me Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford both left Wizards of the Coast. They moved over to Critical Role's publishing company to work on their product. I saw that. That's pretty exciting. I'm not going to lie. I've never tried Dagger or something. Whatever their new framework is. Their like new game. But I'm interested to see someone in that space work with like, you know, because yeah, obviously Matt Mercer is incredible. And like Matt Mercer, Chris Perkins, and Jeremy Crawford must be like the trifecta of DMs, right? Dagger Heart, that's what it is. I wanted to say Dagger Fall, and I'm like, that's not right. Dagger Heart. You haven't tried it either? They're running a new show with it right now. Oh, cool. Cool. All right, so our problem is that we're kind of moving things around in physical space because while the camera does move like this, it moves, our camera never really rotates because that's not really a meaningful thing. I suppose it could. Maybe it should. Maybe the camera itself should rotate. Maybe rotating the world is wrong. Because we could still just redraw everything. Oh, all the tile, every single tile map would also need to rotate. But maybe that's easier than what I'm messing around with here. It's probably better if we don't make the tile maps rotate all the time. But in that case, that means we do need to actually move things. Like the bounding boxes that hold our ships and stuff. Our blocks. MCDM also has a new RPG they're working on, which is done by Matt Colville. Okay. Yeah, I don't follow along very closely. There were a few years before the pandemic where I played a lot of D&D in person. Like we were playing like 6 to 8 hours like every Sunday for for 2 or 3 years. And it was good times, you know? And our game really never survived the transition to digital, and I kind of lost interest after that. And then nowadays, I definitely just don't have the time. But I miss it. I do miss it. All right. Sorry, this is going to be kind of a navel-gazy kind of episode here where I just struggle with this error. I was really hoping to fix it all last night. But clearly my mental model of how this works is wrong. Yeah, maybe when we call blocks AABB view absolute, maybe what it should be doing is first, the bounding box should rotate itself and then rotate the cursor, the coordinates that need to be transformed. Maybe that's how it should be. I kind of like the idea. No. I'm thinking about whether I like the idea of moving the whole game board when we rotate the camera. And we would only need to do that because of the change, because of how we're doing a diametric perspective. So like the tile map has an orientation, right? Like if we go into level editor, the levels here, there's a diamond orientation here. And so what I would need to do is I would need to rotate everything. And by everything, I mean, I really would just need to rotate the actual level itself. Could I rotate the entire board and just be done with it? I think that would help, honestly. Because then we don't need to convert the coordinates quite as much. So if I rotated this like 90 degrees. Oh, what's this thing? Oh, these are offset a little bit, aren't they? I think that's okay, though.
Maximum warp.
I actually don't know if hover levels and select levels or hover levels and elastic levels are used for anything. Maximum warp, no jewel. How's it going? How have you been? It's been a minute. Offset, vector 2, 512 minus 128. What is this for? We don't use it. Okay. I get concerned making big updates. Here, let's explore the initial thing that we would need to do to make this viable would be to move everything to 0, to the world origin of the transform here. What did I leave behind? Oh, the camera. Camera we need to come with. So can we do this? Reset the game like here? And if we do that, should I should update the game board size. So what it could be is it could be new vector 3i negative. Let's just make it negative. Let's make it negative 15. Oh, let's make it big. Negative 31. Negative 31. 0. Let's say 31. 31, 7. Put the board in the middle. Next, seeing me program makes you want to work on your mod, but you already spent 8 hours doing just that. Oof. Well, motivation's a nice thing to have, so I guess it's... If you've got the motivation, I'd say hold on to that. Alright, do I use these for anything? The elastic... Okay, the elastic are the editor levels. Do I do anything with these? I don't think I do. Tiles target node. Oh yeah, I need a better node targeting system. Oh well, if I'm not using them, it doesn't matter and we can ignore them safely for now. No, Joel, you're great. You think you can put out more content soon after you finish some big behind the scenes stuff? Nice. I'm looking forward to it. Excited to see what you've been working on. Okay, so is this maybe how we should have... So maybe we should move these functions, like the actual coordinate changing thing. Maybe we should... I think this part of the function should actually get moved to here. I've written this here. But what it would need to do is it needs to say relative minus game.view.center. I think using absolute is not a good term now. It made sense to call this view absolute back when every coordinate had to be a positive number, positive integer. Now that that restriction has been relaxed, this seems like maybe a less good thing to call it. So this is going to be the static. These can be static. Really silly to be doing that like this. It does let it be static. All right, so what we need to do, we need to... All right, so I think we want to do this a little differently. So, okay, so if we turn the whole tile map and the camera... Oh, turning the camera is going to be hard, huh? I really don't want to do this part. I think it would be better to not. Or maybe it's not that hard to turn the camera. It would make it so we don't need to try so hard getting the coordinates into and out of a certain space. And more importantly, the axis aligned bounding boxes would mostly get to stay the same. Maybe that's true either way though. So yeah, I think that's the mistake with this process, is that I'm not first transforming the bounding box and then transforming the coordinates. So when we do something, so the part that's failing for us is when we do this bounding box.get absolute. We do it here in the exterior cutaway. We say blocks.get absolute block coords. So the block coords, I see. So for each block coord in blocks.aabb, what we need to do is we need to say blocks.get absolute has any. Oh, this is a mistake. The block bounding box is already in an absolute state. We don't need to do this get absolute thing. It should just be get. Well, maybe that's part of the problem. I mean, there's definitely still some issues with the way I'm representing this, but that explains that crash, I guess. But now nothing works. Or within a certain range, nothing works. So what concerns me is when I do stuff like this. Oh, this actually kind of works now. Okay, no crashes so far. Ooh, camera rotation. Yeah, Nix. We're not quite there. But it looks like I'm not seeing any... Okay, well now we're seeing some issues. Yeah, like if I rotate around a bunch of times, I should get back to the same point. But this is not happening. Okay, well, at least we fixed that one crash bug. Oh, so here, like block chords in the extended bounds, these are in relative terms. Oh, well, this maximum isn't, though. Nix, what if you're rotating backwards, i.e. the other way? Two to the left, to the right. Do you get back to where you were? Because you should have some kind of hidden offset on your camera. No, we're not. It's in some cases, it works fine, like how you're describing, and in others, it doesn't. And that is the crux of what we're investigating. Because, yeah, here it's fine. This is all fine. This is also fine. And then it starts to get less fine. It gets less fine the further from the origin you are. So there is some transforming stuff that's not. So here we're fine again. See? No problem. Could it be the rotation happens at some hidden origin point? The rotation is happening around the camera. Which is why it's always appearing... Well... See, there it jumped. And that's because I think it was under rotation at the previous rotation point, and then it tried to reapply the rotation from this new point without going back into canonical space. So there's some going into and out of certain spaces. Going into and out of the camera spaces is not totally right. And I think I'm running into an issue because I'm having to... It's all being pulled from these bounding boxes, right? These axis-aligned bounding boxes. And those need to understand where they are in terms of camera rotation as well, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. Because stuff here doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's a block in a buffer. Try to divide the length you are from the middle of the ship and offset your camera with it. No, I don't think so. Your brain's fried. Don't worry about it. We're many hours into investigating this. We've tried a number of things. The problem is I think I'm midway through changing a number of things. And I think that's causing some complication. I'm still not sold on the turn the whole tile map thing. But it would help. And then the camera would need to jump to a position. And if the camera's going to jump to a position, maybe that's the problem. I think I might need to move the camera more. I either need to move the ground under the camera or I need to move the camera. That's pretty obvious, right? But because of how we're redrawing everything, what I've currently been trying to do is just redraw everything in camera space. But I think we're doing that somewhat inconsistently somewhere. I'm going to go back to putting these just kind of where they previously were. In the middle here. I think that's more stable than what we had. What if instead of rotating, you just use a matrix to reorder the tile map tiles? That's kind of what we're doing. The tiles are we're using a rotation matrix. That's what this formula is. This is just the simple rotation matrix of, I think it's this one. Hey, Ferlansky, how's it going? So we're just applying the simplest case of this. This is all we're doing. So we are doing camera matrix rotations. It's just not stable, and that has to do with the rotation is not the problem. The problem is getting it into and out of the correct space. We do a transform using the origin point of where the camera is, offsetting everything using some vector between where the tile is and the camera origin is. We are also doing that. So that's why we subtract the game view center from the coordinate before we rotate it. So we get the coordinate into camera space, essentially. Then we rotate it, and then we put it back into world space. We could set this up in a way, arguably, where you don't need to put it back into world space at the end, but at the moment, that's what we're doing. So yeah, I don't think there's a problem. Can you use local space instead of world space? We would need to change something about the way things are drawn. That's why I was talking about we could rotate the tile map, we could move the camera. There's a number of ways we could do this. You're doing good for Lansky, how am I? I'm pretty good. We're trying to get camera-centric rotation going, and vector math is hard. But we've got the basic activity going. The problem is we're not achieving consistency, which means that in some cases things are like drifting or behaving weirdly. Oh, this is still a problem. What if I cut this part out? I did something that changed it. Is it really this part? Is it really just this part, the exterior cutaway? What if you just remove the world space calculation of the code? It kind of works. But it will cause an argument out of bounds in some cases, because we're not respecting fun. What's inconsistent? No, that's not it. Just getting the objects into and out of the camera space correctly every time is a little inconsistent. Oh, that's not what I want to do. The problem is that some stuff goes off of this absolute coordinate system and some stuff goes off of this relative coordinate system. And I think stuff is getting mixed up. You could shift everything over back to 0, 0 afterwards, where 0, 0 is the original tile the camera was before rotating. Yep. So I think there's a consistency just between how we're representing everything. Here we go. Here's where the problem here was. I changed this constant. And I moved everything back and I didn't change the constant back. Okay. That weird little issue is, so if you'll see for Lansky, this mostly works. Mostly. I think one thing that's happening to it is if it's previously been moved into a camera relative position when the camera was somewhere else, and then we move the camera and then do another rotation, yeah, it's not going back into the correct point first. And that makes sense. Which is part of the reason why I don't really want to represent the camera space in like real terms. It's kind of why I want to get everything back into world space after. But that's what we're talking about. Okay. So that means you need to rotate the bounding boxes that are being used to define where these coordinates are. And that we haven't set up yet. So I haven't decided exactly where I want to do that. So like here, we're saying get absolute, we're saying get index, and we're saying view absolute. But the problem is it still just does this get index. On. You could cheese it and make the bounding boxes really large. Yes, I could. And I'm not going to do that. We could totally cheese it and do that. But we can't do that because we flood fill these spaces. Or I don't want to do that. Because space is large, and for me it makes more sense to have a thing has a space that it needs to exist, rather than we've captured all of space and it's sparsely populated. Because our bounding boxes are dense. They're not sparse. So I don't want to pay for that. And I don't want to switch to sparse. So we just fix it. We fix it eventually. It's probably going to take a while. This is one of those, I was really trying hard to do this last night. I worked on this for like 4 or 5 hours last night, and it was midnight, and I was like, I have to stop. Because I tried a whole bunch of different stuff. Because some stuff really is not easy to work on stream. Anything that involves like deep thought about something and like mentally like holding how something works in your head is not something easy to work on stream. You're just generating worse and worse ideas. No, they're fine. They're fine ideas. I know it's hard to suggest stuff in this case because there's a lot of context to how the system already works. We were definitely cheesing it earlier when we weren't allowing minimum bounds to go below 0, but now we do. And I think there are some things, some holdovers that are like causing issues. I think we took some shortcuts in various places. And now I have to go back and figure out why we're having a problem. Maybe we start diagramming things out. I know it looks terrible when I do this, but it might help me. So we'll show a grid. I don't know. Yeah, that sounds fine. So we've got a 16 by 16 grid here. I'll make like... I guess I'll just color the whole thing, huh? Like these 4. So we've got like this origin. Is that the origin? No, that's off. Origin should be here. You take the absolute of the furthest coordinate, make the bounding box extend that much in every direction. That way rotating the ship shouldn't make it out of bounds. We could do that. But we could also just rotate the entire bounding box around the origin. And that's what I want to do, and that's not what we're currently doing. I'm just trying to think of the correct point at which to do that. And that's also something we don't want to write back. It's like a view into the space. You vote from we start from scratch in 3D. That's not a bad idea. It is not a bad idea. So I'm gonna make a layer here. I'm gonna call it like grid. I'm going to just visualize this and talk about it because I'm really not like a mental model kind of person, especially when it comes to spatial transformations. I get confused really easily. And I think part of the problem we're running into is when coordinates are going into and out of camera space, and the camera space is at a different point. Like the camera space is moving. I think that's causing a bit of a problem for me. Like the camera's in a different point than it was last time we did this, when we got it into that state. And so I think it's causing the look of it to like be weird. All right, so we've got our grid. I think I'll give it a tasteful background. Tasteful background color. Less eye-burning background color. Turn the grid off. All right, I've made a Go board. I create an illusion. It's all illusions here. All right, so here's the world origin. Let's make a couple of things. So let's say we've got like a bounding box. Let's say we've got as well. Say we've got a camera. And let's also make like a point. Well, let's put the camera above the grid, and let's also put the point above the grid. So we'll have a camera. Put it right here for now. Make it the bright yellow. We'll make a bounding box. We'll just put it wherever. We'll make it. So there's our bounding box. And then we'll put a point somewhere arbitrary like there. Nix, you don't think rotating the bounding box will be enough? As if you rotate the bounding box before the tiles, it will be out of bounds. No, the bounding box is the lookup source. Like, the bounding box is what you look up into to get the coordinate, to get the items. So that's the only one that matters. If you do it after, that will also be out of bounds. You don't think you can truly rotate it with the tiles? I think you might be misunderstanding what I mean by bounding boxes. The bounding boxes are dense 3D volumes. That is how you get from... It's the actual buffer of, here are all of the blocks. And that has both an internal coordinate system as well as an external coordinate system, right? So it has its minimum and maximum. I could have defined it as center and extent. I did minimum and maximum for some reason. I'm tempted to go back to center and extent. Minimum maximum was fine. Because actually, you know, it worked okay. And it still works okay. Bounding box. We'll call this a camera rotation diagram. All right, so at the moment, the camera is going to be at the same point as the world origin, because that's just easier. This stuff I actually think I want to move. I'm going to move this box. Actually, the box is fine. The point I want to move. Move the point down here. For Lansky, every time you come in here, you just learn that you absolutely could not switch to game development. It should keep to web. I mean, I arguably shouldn't be doing game development either. All right, so if we rotate the camera... If we rotate the camera 90 degrees... I guess I should paint this again. So it's doing the old bounding box before the rotation, and then I'm going to draw the bounding box again after the rotation. So after the rotation, it should be here. And then this position. What? Oh, is that already the color? And the position. Oh, I didn't make this big enough. Look at all you full stack web devs. All right, and this is where the point. So this is all pretty easy. And this is the simple case that my system seems to handle fine. So the yellow is... maybe I should make the camera white so that it's easier to see. So we've got a bounding box. We've got a point here, which is like a tile or whatever you want to say. If we rotate the camera 90 degrees, the point gets moved over here. We would need to, if we don't do anything else, obviously this coordinate can't be looked up in this bounding box. So the easiest thing to do is to just put this coordinate back, then do the lookup. The problem is multifaceted. The problem is when this camera moves. So like we do this rotation in this state, and then the camera moves, and then we do another rotation. For some reason, we get a weird jump. Is one of the problems that we get. We also seem to get bounding box out of alignment issues, which shouldn't happen. So like essentially we are failing to go back and forth between global and local space correctly in every case. So this case is super easy. You don't run into any problem with this. If I then do this, though, yeah, it goes back to... So we can do this all day. If I then go, like, down here... Now where'd it go, right? I don't know where anything went. We went all the way over there. Now where is it? So getting it into camera relative space is working because we take our absolute coordinate, we subtract the camera's position, essentially. Then we rotate it around the camera. Then we put it back in the world space. No, that's wrong. I think we want to not put it back into world space, which I think Nick suggested. That's because we're putting it in world space, but we're drawing it. The draw space, quote unquote, of the tile map is different than the world space of the coordinates. So that's part of the problem. And then when we want to get it back into world space, if it's truly in relative space, we shouldn't need to do this part yet. We should be able to just do this. However, I feel like this doesn't work, which means I think some of the coordinates we're feeding in as relative coordinates aren't actually camera relative. I guess this is the trick of it. There's maybe more than 2 spaces. There might be draw space. So there's like build space, which is never under rotation ever. Then there's like draw space, which can be under rotation. And then there's camera space, which is something else, which we only really need for the rotation. So maybe I'm not modeling this correctly enough. Which could explain why some stuff was moving around or jumping around. It might be not understanding exactly where the origin is. All right, let's see what I did here. This is almost certainly going to crash. Or just not work. All right. Yeah, everything disappears and then crashes. So yeah, we have to get it back in some kind of space. Oh, it's this call again. What if we just turned the cutaway system off for right now? Let's just not do cutaways right now. Let's simplify our problem. Okay, 4 rotations don't get us back to where we were. Oh. Fascinating. Oh, there you are. Where's this thing? All right, back to the diagram here. So we do our rotation. So if we do our rotation when the camera's here, this is what I expect to happen. If we then do the rotation again, and the camera moves, how am I gonna show this? So this is the camera moving. Why isn't that totally even? It doesn't matter that it's not even, I just don't understand why. There we go. I appreciate everyone having this very lively conversation about web dev. I haven't been calling it all out because I feel like me narrating an entire conversation would be very difficult. But it's very cool. All right. So here's the move. So if the camera moves like so, drawing arrows is hard. Whatever, good enough. Good enough for illustrative purposes. So if the camera moves, and then we do this rotation again. Oh, you made your first website recently, No Jewel? Nice. Ooh, an automated troubleshooter sounds really cool, Rihanna Journey. All right, so we're going to... Himanshu, you want to create a game that has a simple peer-to-peer server. Do you know how difficult it would be if you do it in Love 2D instead of Godot? No, I do not know how difficult it would be in Love 2D. However, it is pretty easy to do in Godot. How's it going? Welcome into the channel, Himanshu. Is there a reason you don't want to use Godot? Because yeah, the Godot peer-to-peer stuff is surprisingly easy to do. There is actually a talk from GodotCon that should go up recently, or that should go up soon, about that. But it was just from listening to that talk. I haven't done it. Important caveat, I haven't done it. But I heard a talk from someone who had, the person who did the multiplayer for Dome Keeper. I'm pretty sure they did that peer-to-peer. I'm pretty sure. So you have a bunch of abstractions. There's a node called the multiplayer peer in Godot, and that manages these connections for the multiplayer API. I would look into multiplayer peer and multiplayer API. It's pretty cool. But yeah, unfortunately, if you want to try to do that in Love 2D, I'm not sure. I haven't used it. It looks cool. It sounds great, No Jewel, the website you made. I made my website with WordPress, which is like, bleh, horrible. Never again. It was horrible to set up, but not so horrible that I feel like putting an effort to changing it, you know? All right, so if we move from the old camera point to the new camera point and then do a rotation, it should Here's the problem. What it should do is it should calculate from here and then do the rotation, right? It doesn't do that. It goes back to the canonical representation and then does the rotation from here. It doesn't do it from here where it last was. That might explain some of the discrepancy I'm seeing. Or it might not. I might just not have any idea. So if you do this, over by 3, up by 5. Should be then over by 5, down by 3. So it should be like here. So it should be here. But I think what ends up happening is that it ends up being, instead of there, it ends up being here. It ends up being here instead. Because it's going from the original point, not the previously projected point. And that would cause an out of bounds access. Oh, okay. That's definitely part of the problem. Y'all are recommending Tailwind CSS. I probably need to put a little more effort into my website. There is stuff that would be fun to do, like embedding like some of the Game Jam games I've made and stuff like that. Right now, it's really just like... It's really just a landing page, and it looks like terrible. So bad. I mean, it looks fine, but there's just nothing to this. And to get it to work right on the phone, I had to make it this really awkward proportion on desktop. It looks better on a phone, or on my phone. It looks better on my phone. This is just so static. I don't know what else to do with it. Nobody hack it, please. It's just WordPress. All right. Oh, hold on. I did this a little wrong. Oh, no. This is right. This is right. Yeah, so when the camera's here, we have our box and a point here. Oh, this also explains... So, like, if we then move the camera... Getting it back from here to here is hard. I don't think we run into that problem right now, only because I cache the coordinate that the screen center was at when we rotated. And then I don't update it until we try to rotate again. Oh, but I update it before we try to rotate again. Oh. Yeah, okay. So I'm not managing. It is what I suspected. I'm not managing the conversion of into different spaces correctly. If you're doing a WordPress site, you're not sure about the... Or if I'm doing a WordPress site, you're not sure about the Tailwind recommendation. The integration would be weird. Yeah. I have bad reasons for why I used WordPress. It was just really easy to do. In a previous life, I thought I was going to use AWS more. So I have a lot of stuff set up with AWS. Oh, geez. Okay. And I have some regrets about it. So yeah, so this could cause all sorts of problems. No, Joel, you got so many requests on WordPress config and environment files, even without sharing the URL anywhere. You don't have any sensitive info there. It's still scary, yeah. It's so easy to get started if you're not doing much customization. Only use a few parts of the most popular plugins. It's not a terrible experience. But customers always seem to think they can just hit upgrade at any time. Yeah, give me the upgrade. Can't I just press the build website button? Just like I can press the build game button? Does that not work? All right, so how are we going to address this? Because there's a couple problems here. One problem is, so this is the canonical representation of everything. So this is like the initial bounding box and point that we're interested in. When the camera is here, or in the center, if we do a 90-degree clockwise rotation of the camera, and we end up over here. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm doing this in the right order. So x becomes y, and y becomes negative x. Yeah, that's what I have. Y becomes negative x. Oh, that's the opposite. I have my camera rotation hooked up backwards. I should flip these. Because if the camera gets rotated, let me make sure let me see how my input map is set up. Orbit left, A, orbit right, D, shift D, technically. So it's right, so that's positive. So positive moves us like this. So if the camera rotates 90 degrees, then we actually want everything to... Hold on. X is negative y. Oh, this might not actually be... I might actually have it set up correctly because I have a different coordinate system than this, I think. Our coordinate system is right and down. Let me see if that's true. So that's negative. That's negative. It's positive x, negative y. That becomes negative x. so bad with left-hand rule, right-hand rule stuff. So that's positive x, negative y. That becomes negative x, negative y. So the positive x gets flipped. Positive y. Oh yeah, that's backwards. Okay. Well, that's something. Let's just flip these real quick. That's not a major thing, but it's something. So now if I do this, and I do a positive, so that should make an L shape. That didn't do anything. Oh, and now it's all busted. Because it's busted because I'm not doing this. Or is it busted because I'm not getting it back into camera space after? So yeah, moving the camera definitely seems to be the root of the problem. Like doing a rotation, then moving the camera, then doing another rotation. And I think that's fixable. Just see if I fix this one thing first. Okay. So yeah, I rotate the camera 90 degrees clockwise. The world rotates 90 degrees counterclockwise. No, that's wrong. I should be seeing this. Oh no, that's right. So I go clockwise. Oop, that's counterclockwise. So I go clockwise, I go counterclockwise, I go clockwise, I go counterclockwise. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so flip that real quick. No big deal. That doesn't really affect anything on a wider scale here. All right, so one more time restating the issue. So if our bounding box and our point are here normally, the camera just happens to be at the world origin here, just for convenience. Actually, it doesn't matter where the camera is, but the camera's here relative to this. So then we rotate the camera 90 degrees clockwise. This gets rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise about this. So we end up here. And then we move the camera. And then we rotate another 90 degrees clockwise. If we rotate from, or yeah. So this needs to rotate another 90 degrees counterclockwise, the box and the point. So if we do it from this new point, we should go from here to here. The problem is, if we do this rotation from here, we end up here. And this is obviously outside of this bounding box, because it would correspond to this point in absolute space. And this is obviously out of bounds of this. So even if, so that's where the problem is coming from, I think, is because it's not sequential. Like, it doesn't go from this point in relative space to this point in relative space. It goes from this point in absolute space to whichever point it needs to go. So it doesn't like incrementally do the rotation. It does the whole rotation from the starting point, which may have, and if you have like, in this case, you have like a new origin, then we have problem. All right, so how are we going to fix that? We could do a transform from here to the previous state. I don't want to keep track of... Well, the only thing we need to keep track of is where the camera previously was the last time we did a rotation. Because we need to first get from absolute form into the current relative form. And then once we're in the current relative form, we can get to the next relative form. Well, then how do we get back to absolute form from here, though? We need to undo. I don't see how this doesn't compound. Do we need to remember more than one state? I feel like I'm approaching this backwards. This is a lack of fundamentals on my part. So what if we did this again? Let's say we moved the camera and we did this rotation again. And then we want to get back to the absolute space. I guess we don't need to do that. So let's pretend that this is the actual world origin, this starting point here. And the first time the rotation occurred, it's rotating about the world origin. So how do we get back from here back to this? Because if we just negate it, so we're by 3, by 3, by 5. We'd end up here, which is wrong. There has to be a way to get back to the beginning from whatever the most recent point is without having to remember a lot of state, because otherwise we have to remember even more state. So I need to be able to get it back into some kind of stable thing first. Yeah, because even if I just do 4 rotations, if I move the camera during any of the rotations, we won't get back to where we started. Oh, maybe we don't need to. Maybe I'm thinking about this a little incorrectly. I mean, I know I'm thinking about it incorrectly. Let me just try to think about the dimensions along which I'm thinking about this incorrectly. I think it's time to watch a 3 blue, 1 brown video on vector space and matrix multiplication again. So I don't see a way to do this without requiring a lot of statefulness, and I do not feel like that's necessary. Because we don't actually need to get back... Oh... I think I'm starting to see it. So we do need to get it into and out of world space at the beginning and end, which I am currently doing because, yeah, that's on the right. That's the right path. So we get it into camera space, and we transform it, and we put it back into world space. So how would that affect this? appreciate everyone hanging out today. I know this is kind of a quieter, more bash my head against the wall kind of a day. But this is how I solve these kinds of problems. I basically have no idea what's going on until I have every idea what's going on. But yeah, so the problem for us... So it's stable as long as we don't move the reference point during the rotation, as long as we return it back to normal before we rotate it. So that is correct. Can I force? Okay, we're not even getting any out of bounds issues, which is good. A little weird that that happens. Like this. It must be at a boundary. So we're not getting any out of bounds reads, which means we're going into and out of camera space correct. So the issue is changing the camera position and then continuing to rotate, or even trying to undo the rotate. Nix, sorry you're not doing any brain wrecking comments. No worries. No worries, Nix. Berlansky, the classic why doesn't it work? There's random coded it for days. Why does it now work? Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that. That's why I'm trying to avoid just changing things until we get correct behavior, and I'm trying to actually diagram it and stuff, because I need to understand why. And yeah, I think I'm coming to the conclusion that there's like a draw space. But there shouldn't be. But there is. And it's because of how we handle our camera. I think if the camera just actually rotated, obviously this would not be a real problem, but the problem is we're reprojecting everything. Next, you're trying to figure out how Project Zomboid handles UI. Oh yeah, I bet that's a complicated UI. So my problem is even if we... So let's say, so we've done the first rotation at this point. We got here. We do the second rotation at this point. And so we get here, which is already desynced from where if you do this from here. The problem is, even if we... How do we compensate for that in a way where we can get back to here when we're done rotating? And even is that even our goal? Or is it, as long as the camera is moving, there is going to now be a discrepancy between the draw position and the actual canonical position? And I'm tempted to say yes. Tempted to say the answer is yes. So if we finish out this rotation from here, let's just say for argument's sake, or I guess either of these points, we finish it out from here. Four by 3. Oh. Yeah, so before we do the next rotation, we have to figure out how we got to this last rotation point. And that might be tricky because we might need to figure out how we got to the rotation point before that. I mean, there isn't one in this diagram, but there could be. And then we need to calculate the next rotation point, which should be here. Should get us to here. The problem is if we then do that again, we end up here, which is very far from here. And this isn't even... However, no. You know what? You know what might make sense to do here? No, never mind. I thought for a second it might make sense to attach the tile map to the camera, but that's insane. That would work very poorly. And then we'd only be drawing stuff around where the camera is. And that would be kind of cool. But I think it would look kind of weird. Because, yeah, we would need to have, like, micro offsets. Like, when we're within the move, like it would have to follow the camera, but, like, from a certain standpoint. It would need to follow, but not constantly. It would need to jump every time that there's a... I don't want to do that, because then every node also needs to jump around. And then, like, that'll look weird with, like, particle effects. I guess particle effects are going to look weird anyway. Maybe there's no avoiding that, because we do need to redraw everything. I mean, particle effects, you can also move the emitted particles, I think. Let's not worry about that right now. That's not a terrible idea. To have just one set of tile maps that kind of follows the camera around. Instead of trying to draw everything. It would certainly reduce the rendering load, because you wouldn't need to set the tiles on a bunch of tile maps that you can't even see. It's not a bad idea. But yeah, it couldn't directly follow the camera. It would need to, like, it would need to follow it a little bit. And it would need to wait until it moved to the next coordinate and then jump to that coordinate. Huh. I don't think we need to do that. But I'm trying to think of whether that would make things easier. Because, yeah, there is a separate draw space origin. So there's the world origin. There's like a rendering space origin. And there's like a camera space origin. There's a lot of stuff happening right here. And I'm trying to hold it all together in my head, and I'm having a hard time. But that's okay. It seems like it's going to be another late night for me trying to figure this out. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to try to move the tile map around with the camera. It was a cool idea, but I'm not gonna... It's gonna be annoying enough rotating everything. Because I realize it's not just enough to rotate the tiles. We also are gonna have to rotate every single node. Unless we rotate the entire tile map. If we rotate the tile map, the nodes that are part of... As long as we interleave the nodes, like crew members, stuff like that. As long as we interleave the nodes inside the tile maps, like the nested tile map, we don't have to place it in the tile map, but we need to nest it in the structure so that it Y sorts correctly and stuff like that. And also so it would be relative. So maybe Maybe it's not that crazy to rotate the whole tile map. And then we would rotate the camera as well. Does this actually solve anything for us on the calculation end? I don't think it does, because we're going into and out of tile map space all the time. So I guess that's what we have. We have tile map space that we need to think about. Because whenever we go into a point, we look at, okay, where's the, like, what's the tile map coordinate? We have to think about that as well. Although, again, if we're rotating the camera and the tile map data, or the tile map as well, then we could also just not rotate either. If they're both rotating, then we might as well not rotate either of them. We do need to update the position of the camera. Maybe I'm not when we do a camera turn, because right now we're just redrawing everything. Maybe it'll be better to just move the camera and then redraw everything. Because right now the camera is only moved by, like, panning. It's not physically moved when we rotate it. Maybe that's also causing some problems. Yeah, I think there's a whole mess of things going on here that is making life hard for us. We just got to detangle them. Admittedly, most people don't do this kind of isometric camera rotation stuff because it's weird and it's hard. We're trying it. It's nice to know that it's working as long as the rotation point doesn't change during the rotation. You mean that was the original idea, no, to rotate the tile map? I wouldn't say that was the original idea. Part of the way we've set this up was so that so that the camera doesn't turn and the tile map doesn't move, because we just redraw everything from the new view. But I'm just trying to figure out a way if we can leverage the existing transform system to make this easier. And I'm tempted to say no because of the tile map thing. There are ways in which it would help. Like, it would help with, like, nodes that need to move with the camera rotation. So it wouldn't be bad. But if we're going to rotate the camera and the tile map, we might as well just not, right? And just move everything instead. Can you rotate tiles on a tile map? Could you cheese it by rotating the map and then counter-rotating the tiles? You can't rotate the tiles on a tile map. That's why you would have to rotate the whole tile map. But yeah, so we're able to rotate around this axis. Problem is if we're mid-rotation and the axis moves. So now we're like off. And now if I try to do this again, yeah, you see it does something weird there. And it's because it doesn't remember the rotations that came before. And now we're in a broken state because I made multiple rotations. Well, we're not broken, but it's not great. Yeah, so it's the sequence. It's the sequential series of rotations from different origins that is causing some weirdness. We're not crashing anymore, which is good. And I think we're actually even able to draw outside of the bounds, which is pretty cool. Block the user from moving the camera mid-rotation. I feel like that would be a bad user experience. Because it's not going to be up to the player too. Like, what if like a warning sign flashes and is like, this character's about to die, and you like double click on it and it like moves your camera to that point while you're in the middle of a rotation. So yeah, that's not. I know you were joking, but still. Yeah, that won't work. Got a bit more work to do. No worries, Freelansky. Thanks for popping by. Appreciate it. We'll figure it out. It's just a question of whether it's going to take us the rest of the week. Which is fine. Viewership has been pretty low this week, which I like to see on these weeks that I'm like struggling to do even basic things. It's nice when no one shows up sometimes. I mean, y'all are in Twitch chat and you're chatting up a storm, and I appreciate that. But I'm just looking at, you know, all the numbers. And I like to have these. It seems to be lucky to me that most of the time. I mean, I'm gonna say this and then I'll get rated by like 40 people. But it's nice that we have some quiet time where I can just bash my head against the wall here. Why not store the user's last location when they rotated and the current one? And when you rotate, move the camera to the last location and then rotate and then move it back. Something like that could work. That's kind of something like what I'm thinking of, but the player needs to not notice that that occurred, right? Hey, Void. You're not new. Welcome in. How's it going? But I don't want to do that, Nix. I don't want to have like a camera rotation where we have to like remember the state of previous rotations and like where the camera was last time it rotated. Because like, where does it end? So yeah, I don't know. There's a more correct solution to this, and I just need to look at the fundamental math behind this a little more closely. There's definitely a factor that I wasn't considering before. I was only thinking of it in terms of like camera space and like world space, but there's also like draw space, which is a little different. And that's like the tile maps draw space. And how that's affected by the camera moving and rotating. So I need to think about that a little more. So maybe there's an additional step where I get it into this other state or this other space. Well, you only need to remember the last rotation, no? As you always just go back to that. We can't stop rendering during the camera movement. No, you don't need to you need to remember more than just the last location. Here's an example. So I have my example here of like, here's the initial point and bounding box in the space. When the camera is at this location, we do a rotation into this space, right? And then we move the camera here and we do another rotation. Okay, so now the camera gets into this space because it looks at where it was last time relative to the old camera location. What if we then move the camera again and then do another rotation? Well, then to figure this out, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe we do only need to remember the last one. But that doesn't resolve the problem of how do we get back to here? How do we get back to the actual canonical location? And I think the answer is we don't, because we're not thinking about draw space. So like this was here, and it is here in a way, but what I'm not thinking about is in the beginning. This is I think where my disconnect is happening. This just happens to coincide that global space and draw space are the same at this frame. But as soon as the camera starts moving and rotating, the combination of rotating and moving, there's now a disconnect between like the back end, like here's where stuff actually canonically is, and here's where stuff is in draw space. And so I think there's just an additional reference frame that I'm not taking into account, but I need to make sure that that's true. You installed Pico 8 for funsies? You're trying to do something RTS-like since you installed Rise of Nations and got inspired? Rise of Nations is the GOAT. Rise of Nations. We might as well have just stopped making RTS games at that point. Nix, before the rotation happens, you set the camera to 0 and then do the rotation. That's why it will always rotate properly with the same rotation. Yeah, so you're saying you get the camera into draw space or something like that. So you put the camera into a different space, and then you put that other thing into the camera space, and then you unroll it. So there's multiple layers. Right now we're only doing one layer of like translation, which is getting stuff into camera space. But the camera itself is also in another space, and we need to account for that. I think we're on the same page. I think we're just talking about it a little differently. Why isn't there Rise of Nation Definitive Edition? There should be. There should be. Nix, when you're describing setting the camera to 0, 0, that means putting the camera into something else's space. That means like putting it relative to something where it's now 0, 0. Like it is at the origin of something. You've removed some kind of offset that you have. So yeah, I think we're describing something similar. I don't know if it will work. But yeah, Void, I think that's gonna be cool. I love Rise of Nations. I haven't played it in a long time. Back when Big Huge truly was Big Huge. 2003, geez. Yeah, what the heck, Microsoft? You've owned the rights to Rise of Nations since 2012. Where is my definitive edition? They did that extended edition? When did they do that? I've played that, I think. 2014. Okay, so they did the cash grab thing like immediately. They did the extended edition. You don't want to make a big project? No. Little stuff is good. Little stuff is fine. Oops. We are coming up to the end here. But I want to try this again, so do another rotation. Oh, I should move this the other way. Let's do this like this. Oops. Do it like that. So what if I then move it again? I try to do this. And it should be here. Yeah, it looks like you do need to look back at the history of the transforms that have occurred if I do it this way. More than just one back. I'm not drawing out the whole thing because I've run out of colors, but it looks like you would, the way I'm thinking about this, you would need to know the history of the rotations that have occurred. At least from 0, if you go sequentially in order. Doesn't look like knowing just the last one is sufficient. You would at least need to know where it was at the last. Yeah, because to calculate this position, you need to know that position. You need to know that position. Yeah, so if you do a sequential 3-point, or if you turn 90, then 90, then 90, you need to know the history of that entire sequence, the way I'm thinking about it here. All right. So there's got to be another way then, because that's not viable. Well, we'll look at Nick's. I think Nick's figured it out for us here. Let's see what Nick's has got. All right, so before rotation. So this is our bounding box, I think. This is our camera. Okay. So this is the origin. So this is a bounding box on the origin. And then you've now wrong rotation, offset from the camera. Okay. I mean, this, to be fair, this rotation looks correct, actually. So, like, if you take this, I mean, the little widget would need to be updated. I guess no, it's well, you're doing this in float, which is just a little confusing. So let's read the rest of this and then I'll try to understand it. So the camera moves. Okay, and then here's the incorrect rotation. I see what you're doing. When the camera is at 0 and then you rotate. Okay. Yeah. And then you move to the camera back to where it was. All right, so what you're suggesting to me is, so we have, coincidentally, this starts at 0. So we do a rotation while it's at 0. Then we move it. And then we bring it back to 0. Do the rotation again. And then move the camera back. That doesn't create... No, I'm not judging you, but that doesn't... Either I'm misunderstanding the way you're saying what you mean by bring the camera to 0. If by what you mean is bring the camera to 0 means rotate about the camera, the answer is yes. But, because look what happens here. So, camera's at 0. We do the rotation. We move the camera down. And then now we want to do another rotation. So what you're suggesting is we bring the camera back to here, do the rotation from here, which would move this thing from here to here. It would be at this point. And then you want to move the camera back to here. But the problem is if you rotate while the camera's here, the box should be here, not here. Not like up here. It shouldn't be like there. So yeah, I don't totally see how that solves it. Yeah, I think there's just some stuff with tile map space that we need to handle. I think we need to handle tile map space. And understanding how those 3 spaces interact. Oh well, I'm out of time for today, so sorry we didn't accomplish anything. Sorry we just thought about our problems for 2 hours. I'll try to work on this evening so that we can at least have some progress tomorrow on something else maybe. I at least need to identify how to fix this. We might end up doing the fix tomorrow. But I appreciate everyone's input. Nix, thank you for making a diagram. All right, yeah. I gotta go get ready to go back to work. But this was fun, as always. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. By Void. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.